Check this out. A 5'9" Division I gymnast, a former DJ that has a soft spot for 90s hip-hop and classic rock, an Emmy Award-winning sports journalist, and now author.
That's a nice way to describe it. Lauren Sisler took a tragic event and she repurposed it into something meaningful, which she recounts in her book, Shatterproof. Lauren, thank you for joining us on New York Living.
Hello.
Great to have you.
Hello. Hello. Good morning.
It's so good to see you.
It is so good to see y'all.
Before we
Am I allowed to say y'all on here?
You're allowed to say y'all.
I mean, we're in New York. I know the y'all thing.
My first job in TV was in Savannah, Georgia. That's where I learned how to say y'all.
The drawl?
Love it.
Y'all.
The
That
y'all.
can be the drawl, too.
Y'all. Y'all.
Y'all.
Y'all.
It's a y'all thing.
And you got this from where you grew up.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, and then went to high school in the Blacksburg. Giles County is home for me. Giles County, baby.
County.
Home of the Spartans.
Unbelievable.
Nice.
Yeah.
But she played she was a gymnast at Rutgers. So she's got a little tri-state area love for us.
And you mentioned the 5'9" thing, which is shocking to most people because literally, like you.
I was a gymnast.
You're
I'm
the
5'2"
petite little,
on a good day.
perfect little gymnast
Hardly.
body. Me.
Gymnast. Wow, that is.
So you didn't even have to jump to get the high
should
bar.
not
You
play volleyball.
just went like this.
So when I was at Rutgers, I had grown to be 5'9". Literally had to, like, my big toe, I had to, like, learn to curl it a certain way so that I wouldn't swipe the mat. Like, it was strategy. Because I had grown and you can only put the bars up so high. So, you know.
Strategy.
But I loved it. Gymnastics was my sport, and I loved going to Rutgers. So, like, this is kind of home for me.
It's welcome home.
Yeah,
welcome home.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
book,
Shatterproof.
Shatterproof.
It is a beautiful and such a perfect title because you are an athlete, you are a journalist, you're a mother, you're a daughter. Tell us about the night that changed your life forever and inspired you to write this book.
Well, I'm sitting in my dorm room at Rutgers, studying for exams, and picked up the phone, called my parents like I always did, had a great conversation, hung up, said our I love yous and our goodbyes, and next thing you know, in the middle of the night, I wake up to a phone call from my father saying, your mom died. And it was just a shocking, like, what happened? What do you mean? He said, call your brother. My brother was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia at the time. Call him and let him know what happened. I can't get in touch with him, and get on the next plane, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up. Fly out of Newark, and I can still see the airport like plain as day, get home to Virginia, and he never did show up that day. And instead it was my Uncle Mike and my cousin Justin who had to deliver the news that my dad too had passed away.
So you lost both your parents within hours of each other.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
That's quite an experience.
Yeah.
You waited a bit of time before writing this book. I imagine there was a modicum of evolution that was happening to you. Can you talk to us about that?
A lot of that was the shame. The shame that I felt, because as you can imagine, you lose both your parents within 5 hours of each other. Mom's 45, dad's 52, and seemingly healthy. What I didn't know and what we as a family didn't know is that my parents were struggling with addiction. They were battling opioid addiction, both going to a pain management doctor, getting help for the chronic pain they were both experiencing. And within about a 3 to 4 year period, you know, it started with Oxycontin. They were being prescribed multiple narcotics to cope with the pain. And eventually my mom was prescribed fentanyl, and she was taking she had the fentanyl patch, the fentanyl suckers. And this was back in 2003 when you didn't have a lot of information about it, but she's being prescribed it. It's prescribed by a doctor.
Yeah, right.
Everything's normal.
Doesn't seem so illicit.
Yeah.
You seem so confident, so positive. Did you stay that way, or did you go into a dark place and then have to come back out?
Yeah, a little bit of a dark place. I went back to Rutgers 2 weeks after. My auntie Linda pretty much said, Lauren, you got a commitment, go back to school. But I'll tell you, like, going back to school was the best thing I could have done, because I had my teammates and my coaches there kind of pushing me, some tough love, because, oh, by the way, eventually they're like, hey, you got to pick yourself back up. Like, we love you, we're here for you. But I mean, I was flunking out of school, trying to figure out how I was going to do it. And then the shame, right? Like, on the outside, I had it all figured out. I was the bubbly DJ Sizzler, right?
Right.
But on the inside, I was just drowning in the shame, because there's such a stigma attached to addiction. And I didn't want to talk about it. That was my parents' legacy. I didn't want people to know the truth. And so I ran from it. For 10 years, y'all, it took me 10 years to even open the toxicology reports.
Well, never mind that. You're also grieving. I mean, there's shame, there's grief, there's
anger. Why me? The why me? Like, how does this happen?
Right.
Like, you know, because on the outside, our family, we looked like we had it all put together.
Sure. This is an extreme example of tragedy, or, you know, working through something that feels insurmountable. There are other people, some of whom are watching, who had their own tragedy. And I wonder, because you are such an exemplar, What were some of the like tangible things that you did to work through this? Like for me, I'm an athlete, and I say, and I still have a therapist, but nothing beats working out.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than my copay.
Well, girl, you look like you work out because you got it going on over there.
I try to keep up with you.
I mean,
but what were some of the things that you do? Were there friends? Was it therapy? Was it sports?
it was everything. And I'll tell you, I think gymnastics paved the way for that because it was that ability to be resilient, to bounce back, you know? And so I think that was already kind of etched into sort of the fabric of my life early on to be able to do that. But it's the support system. Going back to Rutgers, having my aunt and uncle, and of course you mentioned my husband, John. I got a little baby now. So,
July 4th baby.
July 4th baby, little Mason, baby Mason.
Nice.
But you know, I think it's just those stepping stones, right? And I will say, that when you have the courage to step out and share your story courageously, vulnerable, transparent, those shackles of shame just burst, right? And I think for me, that was the biggest part is once I started learning to love my story, and that's become my mantra, fall in love with your story, you're able to gift that to other people. Give other people that permission that are going through it, and whether it is addiction, or maybe you've gone through a trauma in your life. You know, you're experiencing something traumatic, a loss, you know, a divorce, whatever it may be. Coming out of that shame, stepping out of those shadows and coming into the light is just, it's exonerating. And I think to me, that's really what helped me, and having that support system, encouraging me to do it and finding my voice in all of that. And it was one step in front of the other.
When did you have that aha moment where you said, I want to write a book?
Oh, you know, it was many years in the making, I think, in the fact that people are like, oh, you should write a book. And then you think, well, when's the right time? Like, when's my story? Like, 'cause you're always writing your story. But it really was in the last few years. So we actually started this back, so we're on the 2.5-year mark at this point in releasing this book. So January of 21. Is it 21? I have to do the math here.
22.
Yeah,
We're in 24.
22,
So
yeah. 20.
We're good at sports,
Good time
not
to
math.
write a book. There was
Right.
a whole lot
Yeah, that's
of
right.
staying at home going on.
But a lot of, yeah, and you know, getting to sit down, I have to give a shout out to Holland Webb. He really helped me to craft this and put this all to paper. He's a phenomenal author, and so he really helped me to develop this story. Because I never thought that my story, like, how do I fill 218 pages worth of content, right?
Oh my
But it's not
goodness.
even, you know, it's the tragedy. It's going through what I did, but also coming out on the other end as a sports reporter, sharing stories, and the stories that I've learned along the way from some of the greatest, you know, Nick Saban, right? One of the greatest coaches of all time.
Roll Tide.
People that have, there you go, the people that have been there and used those experiences to kind of bring it all together. And so really it was just the inspiration of like, okay, you know what, like, I share my story openly, but only like tidbits. And I'll be honest with you, there were so many pieces of this story that I didn't even comprehend until we sat down and started having conversations with different people that were part of the story. And then ultimately, as you read the book, we met the deputy that was there that day when my dad died. And getting to talk to him, for him to fill in some of the gaps, and also to give me a little bit of peace and closure. In that moment is just phenomenal. So the amount of healing. So I would encourage anybody that if you have any, just anything that you want to get pen to paper.
Yeah. Well, also, it's a very inspirational book.
Yeah,
It's
no
also,
doubt.
it reads like a mystery. I mean, it really does. You've done a wonderful job.
Yeah, my cousin Jonathan was like, it's kind of like a John Grisham novel, and then you're kind of like riding a DeLorean through like all these different like rooms and things, and he's just like, you know. So, and it's a quick read, but it's also, yeah, I'm very thankful. And I did narrate the audio version, so if you're interested in that as well.
I've downloaded it. Lauren Sisler, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. That's so
John.
inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for all the work you do to inspire others as well. We appreciate y'all.